we go, Brownies. Here we go. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. You rockin' brown and orange with me, baby. Let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Heisong, coming at you live from Pensacola, Florida. Joined with me, as always, up in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, we've got Dustin. Before we get into anything, here's a quick word from our friends over at True Fan Travel.
Join the Dog Pound on the road this season with True Fan Travel, an official fan experience partner of the Cleveland Browns. Travel to stadiums across the country with other Browns fans and experience the games like never before. This trip includes everything: a private charter flight, hotel, an all-inclusive tailgate, game tickets, boat party, transportation, and more. Cheer on the Browns in New Orleans and party with Cleveland Browns legend Kevin Mack. Visit truefantravel.com today and reserve your ultimate Browns travel package.
Dustin, how you doing?
2 weeks in a row, 2 losses.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. The folks at True Fan Travel is kind of a tongue twister. They put on a great show. You know, this is their first year partnering with the Browns. It was a charter flight that was very enjoyable. I got to go on a plane. It left and it, straight shot to Vegas. The fans, Allie, there was at least over 10,000 Browns fans there. I mean,
Wow.
it was like a Browns takeover in Vegas. That part was beautiful, right? Browns backer party. Debbie threw a great party on Saturday night. The Q&A, the pool party was fun. Like all that was fun. And then the stadium was really cool. This is the first time that I've, obviously being a Boise State fan, I've gone there to watch them play UNLV, but never been there for an NFL game. I'm all in on the Dome. This just like galvanized it for me. I'm like, you know what? I don't care if it's 20 below out in the Muni lot or what it is. I get to go in and I can watch a game at 70 degrees. And I will tell you this, Browns games are loud, but you put those Browns fans in a dome.
It's going to be wicked.
Deafening. I mean, we could literally become one of those fan bases where it's the loudest in the league because we're just so passionate. And I was like, okay, I get it now. Like being in the Dome for an NFL experience, their pregame, all that stuff. Like, now we'll say this, and a lot of us made comments of this, everybody tweaks their domes when they build them. The corridors were kind of narrow, like to where you get to your seats and stuff. It was kind of interesting. They were kind of narrow. But other than that, the stadium was nice. I will say this, though. People complain about leaving the Browns game. Leaving Allegiant Field, there is no good exit strategy. You're literally like, I feel like I'm the Walking Dead in 102 degrees up over the highway, 10 wide, and it just dumps into a casino. Like it just dumps into a casino on the other side.
Yeah,
so it's
not a bad strategy, right?
Right. Well, yeah, that wasn't dumb. I mean, that was not done by pure accident. Same reason they don't have clocks in casinos. But what was interesting was it's a trudge to get out of there, right? So it's very interesting. Cool stadium. Yeah. I'm all in on the Dome. Develop the lakefront, make it a great place for people to enjoy the lakefront, develop it, put it in Brook Park, and let's move on. I don't know why we're having this debate. It'll be a much bigger deal for Cleveland in general, economically in the long run. So I'm all in, but the game, we're going to get into it. It was all over the place, but still enjoyable at times. So, but I digress. But it was a good time. Long story short, they do a great job, and anybody that's thinking about going to New Orleans absolutely should do it because you will have an A-class time with them. So.
All right, there you go. There you go. There you have it. Go check out our friends over at True Fan Travel. Also want to tell you about our friends over at Stadium Mustard. If you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste. It's beloved from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth brown mustard rich in both taste and tradition. It's loved by millions, so be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. Dustin, we didn't do a post-game show on Sunday because you were out in Vegas, and I was driving.
Trying to get out of the stadium. Yeah,
I was driving 16 hours from Ohio to Florida. So we did not end up doing a post-game show. So we need to talk about that loss that the Browns suffered against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Speaking of that, how's your house? I mean, you were kind of in a...
We are good. No issues here. So all good in Pensacola. But let's get into the Browns. Well, we've got more to come later in this program. But for now, we got to talk about that. What is it? So Browns they've got one win on the season so far through the first 4 games. The
against
Bengals,
against a winless team.
correct. No, I mean the Raiders have won a game prior to beating.
No, the only team we beat is winless.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's correct. The Cincinnati Bengals have also won one game. However, the national media has both teams kind of in 2 different directions. If you talk to Bengals fans, even though they're 1-3 on the season, they're still optimistic. They still say, "Oh yeah, we got a shot. Like we've got Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
We're fine. We're good." Browns fans, it is just doom and gloom. What is that? I would say both teams are pretty equal in terms of talent, right? I think that when you look at the depth of both teams, just that alone, you say, okay, yeah, similar. But why do they have the belief and we don't? Is it quarterback play? Is it just who they think Joe Burrow can be and we haven't seen it with Deshaun? Like, what is the difference?
I'll tell you what it is. I think it's a bias for Cleveland teams. And let me use the example. You don't come up with a theme for your city, Cleveland against the world, by accident. And what I mean by that is, when is the last time a Cleveland team, other than the Cavaliers, have done anything that the media can go, oh, look, the Browns have been in the right direction. This team has done that. Now the Guardians, I am still sticking to this. These guys, they are set to win the World Series. And I spoke a month ago, this team looks like they're ready and poised, and they've just got that, good luck, no pressure attitude on. And I think they are the ones that we may be celebrating in the streets here in a month or so. But I just think.
What about fans? Even Browns fans are that way. If you go talk to a Bengals fan, they're like, oh yeah, we'll turn around. We'll be fine. Not worried. Browns fans like burn the team, sell the team.
But that's what I'm saying, because they've been let down so much. I mean, I guess that's where I'm going with this, is the Browns have been the fan base for the Browns since 1999. So we'll just use that kind of asterisk. Since 1999 forward, they've just been let down. Like they've gotten their hopes up in 2007. They go 10-6, and all you need is the Colts to win a game, and the Browns are in the playoffs and probably a pretty good team, right? Nope. Colts lose, Browns are out. 2020, Baker Mayfield, right? The Browns are just, and I will tell you this, Allie, we did our show in Kansas City, and this is where the psyche, where it just made sense to me why Browns fans are where you're saying, like, burn it up, blow it up, all that. You know what the guy said to me in Kansas City? He traveled to Kansas City to go to the Browns game. And you know what he said to me when I interviewed him? And I don't know if you remember this, but he goes, I don't know if I'll get to watch another Browns game in my lifetime where they get this far. Okay, that is the divisional round of the playoffs. That's not the AFC Championship. It's not even the Super Bowl. He went to Kansas City thinking, this may be the best I get to see as a Browns fan at a game, right? So I think our psyche's just like, we're screwed. We have the worst luck, the best, we can't ever draft a quarterback, right? Like everything just goes wrong. So, yeah, so I can tell you this, on the trip back, it was like, everybody was like, whoa, I was wearing my Guardian stuff. I mean, people were like, they give up hope, I guess, because they've just seen this song too many times, right? They just, yeah. And so
this play out before. We've seen how
we've seen glimmers of hope, right? We've seen the glimmers of hope. We've seen them draft great players in the last few years that have turned out to be generational talent, but they just don't put it all together, right? They don't connect all the dots. You got a good defensive end. You've got a good guy over here in Joel Petonio, but David Njoku, but it just doesn't come all together. And I think, yeah.
I agree. I was listening to Browns Film Breakdown, Jake Burns. He does a great job. He was talking about something, I think it was on today's episode, that really struck me, and I hadn't really thought of it this way, that the most fun I think we've had as Browns fans is when you identify that there's hope. That early on, like almost, you've got a crush. You see what this could potentially turn into. And, 2018, coming off of a winless season, Baker Mayfield comes in and against that Jets team, and you see okay, we've got something here. Baker Mayfield, he's going to be the guy to get us there. And then they do. They make it a game short of the AFC Championship game. And that was the most fun that I've ever had as a Browns fan. Now,
Right.
coming off of that, then into 2019 we saw, or excuse me, in 2021 the dip, and then the whole Deshaun, it split the fan base. Whatever side you fall on there, you can't deny that it didn't cause a rift in the fan base and just within the organization.
Right.
I'm sure. And now it's like, okay, we see what this could potentially be, but it's not as fun because there's drama, and it's just not as fun. And I think as Browns fans, when you start to see these little glimmers of hope, man, that is where it's electric. That's when everybody's just unified. The team is unified. The front office, the fan base, the city, everybody is just on board. And I think that there's teams right now that are kind of experiencing that. I think Washington's experiencing that right now with Jaden Daniels. The Texans have experienced that multiple times. If you're a Texans fan, you've experienced this multiple times. I think there's other teams, of course, that have where it's fun. It's fun to
Right.
watch. And then there's teams where it's like, okay, this is rough. And I think the Browns fall into that category right now where they're like, this just isn't fun. And I think even if they would have come away with a win against the Raiders and won the game against the Giants, we would obviously have more of an optimistic view, right? Of course we would. But it still wouldn't be as fun as it was, when things were really going well and everything was just gelled together perfectly.
Well, I don't know. I might push back on that just a little bit, because think about our fan base and how fragile they are in some ways, right? Dallas game, you get blown out at home. It's an NFC team. You kind of put it behind you, right? It's first week. And then you win 3 and you're 3-1, right? We'll say you win the 3 games you're supposed to win, right? And you win them close. We don't care. And then you get the announcement Nick Chubb's back. And then you're like, oh my God. Right. Now think about what that fan base is thinking. You're 3-1, Nick Chubb's back at practice. Oh, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like, it doesn't matter if Njoku's hurt or any of those guys, because all of the, they're not season-ending injuries, right? They're going to be back. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, this team has that lane now, because your Bengals are 1-3. And you're 3. I mean, you're in the hunt. You're right in the thick of things, because the Ravens got off to a slow start and the Bengals got off to a slow start. In Pittsburgh, we know will settle down because they had an easy schedule to start out, and they just played some mediocre teams.
They have to. They have to come back over, and they will. I mean, like the roster, they will.
Yeah, and now you're like, okay, there's the lane, right? Now we won most of the games we were supposed to out of the chute. Nick Chubb's on the radar. He's coming back. I think there's a much different psyche going in at 3-1, where the division would be at and where we'd be setting in the division, than 1-3. And you're like, wow, we may not make the playoffs now. We're done. Like, and we're only a quarter into the season, right? So I think it could be a totally way different mindset. But here's the thing. I don't know I can't figure this team out. Like, I could see this team right now being 1-3, could rattle off 4 in a row and be 4-3. I could see that. I could also see this team lose 2 more games in a row.
Yeah.
And so I just don't, again, to the identity of this football team, I don't know what it is. And I don't think,
Our friend George puts in the comments, win the games you're supposed to win. 100%. The issue with this team, and this has been the issue under Kevin Stefanski, to put it frankly, is they play to the level of their opponent. So yes, they play up to teams. It's not like they're getting blown out in most games. Of course, there are those instances where it does happen, but in most instances they play up, but they also play down. And that's not just the level of play on the field, right? That's not just the skill that these guys are putting out. It's the effort. It is the lack of discipline. It shows sometimes against inferior opponents. Like it is abundantly clear that the Browns were the better team on Sunday. I don't think anybody would argue that. Even Raiders fans would say,
well, again, Vegas is right 90% of the time. They had the Browns by 2.5, right? The Browns were supposed to win that game. even on the road.
Right.
They were favored. Because why? Devontae Adams and Max Crosby are out of the football game. Two of their star players are just out, right? So, yeah, you should win that game. And I'm sorry, but I had a laser focus front row seat to 1st and 10 at the 13 with 45 seconds left and witness the debacle that happened down there to win that football game. And people can make the case that, okay, Dustin Hopkins missed the extra point. You go for the field goal there. Okay, that still doesn't mean you win the game. It means you're going into overtime, right? Still doesn't guarantee you a win. Just means you haven't lost the game or won the game yet. So I kind of throw that out. But 1st and 10 on the 13 with 50 seconds left, it's go time. You get in the end zone. Like, you win that football game. You have the momentum. And I don't know if you could tell on TV. Were you watching the game live, Allie? I don't know if you noticed, when we got the ball back, the crowd in there made that difficult on that 3rd down for the Raiders. You could hear the 15,000 roughly Browns fans in there that were just roaring in there because it made it difficult, and they had to go to 4th down and punt. So, and here's the problem. I don't like things I'm hearing from the players, right? Like,
Exactly.
Well, Jerry Jeudy could very well be our number 1 receiver, and he's playing like our number 1 receiver, right? But he came out in a press conference and said, I'm going to do longer wind sprints or runs this week.
What the hell?
Because I got tired in the game. I'm like, okay, you can think that, but don't project that. You can think it, but don't project it.
That's a thought we keep in here.
Right. It's like,
And then you've got Elijah Moore's dad on Twitter.
Well,
I mean, it's happening. It is in mid-season form.
You know what? I eat a whole pizza because sometimes we do crazy things like that. I don't walk into my office and go, you know what? I ate a whole pizza last night. I'm fat. I don't say it out loud. I'm thinking I'm fat inside because I ate a whole pizza, and I feel like I feel like I'm doing it.
Sometimes you just have to eat a whole pizza. I mean,
well,
look, I get it. There's weird things going on, and that's what I mean. Things are just out of sync with everybody. The fans aren't on board. The buy-in's not there, and that comes down to a lack of leadership and accountability. There's a lot of finger pointing within the organization rather than saying, what can I do to make this team better? This is what as a coach, I need to step up and do this, this, and this. And I don't know what the answer is. So I'm not saying that, but I've just said from the start of the season, from week 1, there's a lack of leadership. One thing I want to talk about before we bring David on is the call, and Kevin Stefanski's done this, and I appreciate his aggression. I really do in a lot of instances. But like we've said before, there's a difference in being aggressive versus being stupid. And similarly to, I think it was the Giants. Maybe I'm mistaken, but nonetheless, first half, early on, it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3, whatever it is. And instead of either kicking the field goal or going for it, clock comes down, trying to, draw them off sides, doing the hard count. Then you waste timeout. You go out, you punt the ball away. And then later on in the half, you need that timeout. Or you could have used those points. And it comes down to things like that, where it's like, we're not a bad football team. The Browns aren't a bad football team. It's just they can't get out of their own way. And I think that's what bothers me is I love the stability that we've had within the organization and coaching staff. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's not something as Browns fans that we've seen a lot, especially in my lifetime. It's a year, you're out. I do appreciate that the Browns have been stable in terms of their coaching staff for the most part. However, I already lost my train of thought and where I was going with that. And I appreciate Kevin Stefanski, but under him, there's been a lack of leadership, there's been a lack of accountability, and there's been an inability to stack wins and win in these moments and win the games that you're supposed to. Yeah, we saw it last year where the Browns were winning those games. They won against the 49ers, came down to a field goal that Jake Moody just hooked, and the Browns win that game. So we saw a little bit of it last year, but consistently under Kevin Stefanski, I'm curious as to why the Browns are unable to just go be themselves and win convincingly.
I think there's a lot of factors into it. I'm not going to put blame on Stefanski in a lot of ways, and I'll say this. A couple things come to mind. This is a tough – I would take 2 wins, a loss, 2 wins, loss every day and take 10 or 11 wins a season. And this is the one thing I'll say to that. It's hard to win, period, in this league. So winning 4 or 5 in a row is tough, right? Some teams just get lucky and they do it, like the Chiefs, because they have that extra player that just is a little extra special.
And they know
Maybe a
how
Josh.
they know not to make.
But I also think they have a little bit extra than other teams do. So I give the example like last year, and I mean now it's what 10 games in a row, but the Jacksonville Jaguars just fell off, made the playoffs, but they continue to fall off, right? Like they have not turned back the other way. And I think at least Stefanski has kept things level, if that makes sense. Like not too high, not too low, and tries to keep guys here, because that is also what this team has had a real hard time in the past. And previous regimes,
Yes.
they would lose, and then they just kept losing, right? They just
Correct.
lost their identity. They had no buy-in. They were out. They weren't listening to the coach because they knew a new coach would probably be in here next year, and it'd be a whole new scheme and whatever, all these things. So players were kind of like, screw it. I'm not going to go out and get hurt. What, I'm getting my paycheck, whatever. And this guy's an idiot, basically. I think what players at times probably thought, right? Like, screw this. He's not going to be here after week 17 or 16. We'll see who our new coach is, and I'll respect him, and we'll move on. So I think what I would say with Stefanski, he's leveled the playing field to where these guys are buying into him, saying, look, this is our culture. We're changing it. But I just feel like this team this year, there's just too many disconnects. And I don't even think it's the coach. I think it's a combination of things. I think there's a lot going on here. And what I mean by a lot going on, you have an offensive line that becomes decimated, right? You lose a Nick Chubb, like to your point, Al, you've said he insulates those problems that maybe did not rear their ugly head on the offensive line, right? Because Nick Chubb's such a great running back. So all of a sudden, these things now are coming to light that kind of just didn't get seen, right? They just didn't get seen because, Njoku was always reliable. He's out, like all these things are super reliable. And then here's the other thing. It doesn't help that you have a guy that comes in to this organization who hadn't played on a practice field in 8 months and rolls up multiple wins at the end of the year and takes the team to the playoffs. And we throw things around like he's rusty or, he hasn't played in games. Okay. Joe Flacco didn't play in 8 months of football, nor was on a practice field doing reps with a team. So I just think there's no identity of this team right now. I think it's more of an identity thing. And the truth be told, Coach Stump brought it up. I think it was 2 weeks ago. This team needs to have a team players only meeting and just kind of look in the mirror and say, where are we going, guys? Are we going this way or are we going this way? What are we doing here? Because the coaches aren't going to fix that, right? If the players aren't bought into each other at the end of the day, Allie, I don't think it doesn't matter who's coaching. They got to believe in themselves. And I kind of feel like right now there's not enough gel of the entire group as a cohesive unit. I think that's the problem because you got Deshaun making comments like I wasn't brought in here to be, to run. What the hell is that? Like, I mean, okay, I know you have to run at times. Again, think it, don't say it. Like, right? Like, I get it. You were brought in here to throw the ball. Obviously, hello. That's kind of easy to figure out. But I'm just saying this team needs to look inside at themselves. And I think that's a great point that's not made. They need to look in the mirror and go, look, guys, we're 1-3. What are we doing here? Are we going to say like Washington's a must-win game and then every game after that is must-win mentality, like going forward to where, like, to your point, this team rolls 4 in a row on, right? Like, or 5 in a row and says, okay, look, they changed the tide. They've got that thought. I don't know where they're at. They're kind of lost.
Look, I want to highlight this comment right here from our friend Jack. It's not so much the coach. I do agree, but the players made bad decisions as well. So, yeah, I think we can be critical on the coaching staff, and I think we have every right as fans to be in a lot of reasons. And I think even the defense is it's a little stale. Things need to change. We need adjustments in the game. We need adjustments leading up to the game. I think that there's some things that are inconsistent with the talent that we had last year. However, this team lost against the Raiders because of penalties, missed tackles. It's a huge problem. Missed tackles. You still have to wrap up. An inability to block, receivers blocking downfield, and of course, I already mentioned it, but pre-snap penalties. That is the reason. Now, coaching staff isn't coaching these players to commit those penalties and to be out of place, be out of shape, apparently, Jerry Jeudy, and to not be able to execute the plays, because we've said this last year. The scheme's there. Kevin Stefanski can scheme guys open. We've seen that. I don't think you can argue it, but he can't make the players execute the plays. And
Right.
I think it goes hand in hand where we do need to be critical on the coaching staff because they deserve it in a lot of ways. But also we need to be critical on the players that need to just go out there and, for lack of better words, get shit done. It's just not happening. I don't know. This is fundamental stuff. Tackling, fundamental. Pre-snap penalties, knowing where you need to be when you need to be there. And of course, catching the football. That's another thing. Blocking downfield when you're supposed to. Not being afraid of getting hit. I think that there's just an accumulation of things that's just disheartening to see, because you can tell when things get going, this team buys in. They really roll off of emotion. We've talked about this at nauseum. When things are good, they're great, but when they're bad, they're just
Right.
burn it. It's tough.
Well, and I was listening to Myles Garrett's post-game conference after the Raiders, and he said, "Look, we got to learn how to tackle. That's ridiculous." I mean, like he literally just said in his press conference, he's like, "We weren't tackling out there.
Yeah.
We have to do that on defense. We have to tackle at the end of the day." And again, that's basic fundamental football. And I will get in as a fan, this frustrates me, and I understand. And we talked about this as fans when we were in Vegas. A lot of the players in today's NFL mentality, they're all about popping that ball out, like trying to make the big play.
Sure.
And then they miss a tackle and the guy gets 20 yards on you because you didn't wrap up and tackle and just – now, I'll tell you who's really disciplined and doesn't do that is JOK. Like he doesn't try to seem like – yeah. I mean, he doesn't like – he'll go and try to get a big sack or something like that, but he just kind of like is laser focused.
Don't get me wrong. He's missed plenty of tackles this season.
Right.
Not necessarily look, I mean, yes, he's a bright light on this defense, of course. Yeah. But I'm grouping everybody in, even the elite players, even Myles Garrett, even Denzel Ward, Deshaun Watson, anybody that you want to say is a superstar on this team. I think they could all benefit by turning it up a notch. I think that it's there. Now we do know Myles is dealing with the feet situation. We'll talk to David here in 2 minutes. David, we'll have you on in 2 minutes here. And we'll talk to him about that. But yeah, it's everybody needs to step up. Coaching staff needs to step up. I think fans, we need to kind of shift our perspective a little bit because obviously we know that this team kind of feeds off of it. The players need to step it up a bit. Everybody involved, I think, let's take it up a notch. My dad always says, even when you think you're working hard enough, you can always take it up just a little bit more. And even when you think you can't, you can take it up just a little bit more. And it's true, you can. So I don't know. I think everybody needs to be held accountable from the top down. Take a look in the mirror, have a come to Jesus meeting, whatever it takes. I just think we've a little bit of going through the motions and a little bit of being too comfortable. But I still think that there's a light at the end of this tunnel. I really do. Yeah,
like I said, I would just like, to your point now, see this team like flip the script and start putting some wins together. And when we're getting these guys back healthy, we'll get into that with David here in a minute, who's coming back, who has a chance to be on the playing field this Sunday. But yeah, I got to tell you, like, I just think they need to internally really look at themselves. I just feel like that's got to happen, like with this football team. And if it takes a players only meeting every week, I don't care. But yeah. Like I said, you can execute the greatest game plan as a coach, but if your team doesn't go out and execute it, it didn't do you any good all week practicing that. Like, right? Like we're in sales, Allie, like that's you put your best presentation together and then you go in front and present it in front of a room and you bomb. Okay, well, that didn't do you any good. Even though you prepped for a week, it didn't do you any good, right? You bombed it on when you did the presentation and presented it. So it's just, I think they have to make each other accountable. I think that's one of the things that they have to just like
accountability and leadership.
Well, and you said that there's got to be guys that raise their voice in the room, right? And I will tell you this about Deshaun. I liked that he showed emotion towards Juwan Jones on Sunday, and they asked him, what did he say? And he said, "Look, you're the best right tackle in this league. Act like it." Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that. Like that's my league.
That. Get on him. I'm all for it.
I mean, I'll take that all day long. Like, man, you got a block on that. And by the way, you're the best. Be the best, right? Like, I'll take that kind of leadership. But there's got to be more of that, right? That can't just be spotty. It's got to come from multiple people looking at the other guy going, look, do it. And, we've had Hanford on, and he talked about that with Minifield and Felix. They knew, all three of those guys, like on a pivot, could go, you got it? They knew, right? And they were successful because they kept each other all accountable. And guess what? That's a team that made the playoffs 5 years in a row because they played at such a high level and had such respect for each other. They respected enough to make each other accountable. And I don't think that's happening, and that's the problem.
Yep. All right, let's welcome David on here in just a moment. Before we do so, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Believeland Landscaping and Pressure Washing. Guys, not only can they make your yard just a dreamscape, but also the winter is approaching. They are the snow removal experts in Northeast Ohio. You can give them a call for all of your landscaping needs, snow removal, and of course, if you need something cleaned up, call them for your pressure washing needs also. And also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Hartville Marketplace and Flea Market. Guys, head down to Hartville on the inside. 3 acres of indoor shopping, over 50 unique shops. It's fully heated and air conditioned. You can also head outside. They have over 12 acres of a collector's paradise, 1,000 vendors. They're open Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays year round. So please go check them out. And let's bring on Dr. David Ullery. This conversation is brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards.
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Woof, woof.
Hello, welcome to Lorello Vineyards, Larry and Kim Lorello. We have a beautiful Here We Go Brownies wine that we would like to offer to you this season as we did last season. We have several other award-winning wines, lovely entertainment and events coming this summer. So come and see us, wine a bit, you'll feel better.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you at the Muni lot this fall. Go Browns.
All right, let's bring him on, Dr. David Ullery, to the program. David, before we even kick it off, Jason says, Dr. David, I need a medication for the next 13 Sundays.
I wonder what the reason for that could be.
I had to guess.
No, I think Dustin's got the right idea there. I can only say so much, though.
Yeah. Anyways,
In moderation. Yeah.
How are we feeling, David?
Feeling great, Dustin. I've got wonderful news for us. That lady and I get married in 45 days.
I think my invitation is in. I need to find my +1, but 45 days. Yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Jason said he's coming. He's your +1. You and Jason. What's your date?
You know what? Jason doesn't want me to start on him and showing up for events. He doesn't even want me
Why don't you bring it? You can bring Bernie. You want to bring Hanford Dixon. There you go.
Hanford would turn Hanford would turn your wedding into a hoot. He'd be like, hoo, hoo, hoo. He'd be barking at your wedding. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, David, here we go. He's back at practice. He Batman sent an Instagram out Tuesday or Monday night, showing his helmets. Let's dive in. That's what everybody's talking about in the city is Nick Chubb running and hey, talk about a lift for a 1-3 football team. Maybe those guys can be inspired by that guy because he's just going to put his head down and work. But go ahead, David.
Yeah.
It's the moment that all Browns fans have been waiting for to hear that, Chubb has been returned to practice and designated for at least hopefully a return. Now, as we know, and as we've talked about, he's got some workup to do still. This is his first steps on the practice field doing drills with the team. Now, obviously, he's been doing stuff on his own in rehab to get ready for this moment. So it's not like he is taking his first steps like a baby. But he definitely has some catching up to do. So, lots of videos out there showing him doing some drills, whether it's individual or team. And he looks good. He looks healthy. He looks like he's feeling good. He's moving well. It doesn't look like there's much stiffness in the knee currently. And he's not really being held up, at least in the limited drills that we saw. What does it mean in terms of coming off of the IR for the first 4 weeks of the season? Basically, they have a 21-day window now where he can be activated to the 53-man roster. So at some point, they will have to make room for him and get him back onto that roster, whether it's, shuffling things down to practice squad or releasing somebody. But he's on the practice field. He's got his helmet on. He's taking handoffs. He's in the running back drills. So also all signs currently pointing towards a return. When that will be, we still don't know for sure. Like I said, we have up to 21 days to get that established. I would not anticipate seeing him this upcoming Sunday against the Commanders, but anything after that, there's definitely an opportunity for him to be brought on another 53 man and get some snaps. So we will see just how soon that happens. But it's October 2nd. We predicted sometime in October, so hopefully that stays true.
Now, when he does return, let's just say, he comes back against Cincinnati or something like that here in the next few weeks. I know we've already talked about this, but now that he is returned, just to kind of paint the picture a little bit, in terms of snap count, like what do you kind of anticipate his limitations to be? I still think we're probably going to see a lot of Jerome Ford, Deontay Foreman, but sprinkling him in, we think it's going to be like, how limited do you actually think this is going to be?
Yeah, you mentioned kind of sprinkling him in with those other two running backs. Just as an aside, another running back is also has his activation window open today with Naheem Hines, and so there's going to be some added depth, which will be great for the entire room, especially Nick Chubb. And so I would say when we do see him back, be it 14 days from now or 21 days from now, his snap count I think will be limited. How much so? It's hard to tell, hard to predict. Every team's different, every trainer's different, every doc's different in terms of the way they want to do it. But I think they want to ease him into it. And obviously, other people are chomping at the bit and saying, let's just get him going. Like, why ease him? But just from a safety perspective and to get him back to game speed, like you can't expect him to play 40, 50 offensive snaps in his first game back. And so I would anticipate, maybe, getting 2 series, maybe 10, 15 snaps in his first game, maybe getting 5 or 6 carries, just kind of testing the waters and see how he feels, see how he does. Anything more than that, I think I'd be able to surprise. And then maybe the next game, double that. Maybe he's in fit 25, 30 snaps and he gets 10, 15 carries. But it's going to be, I think, an ease in process, and don't be surprised, but also don't be frustrated when that first game where he suits up, you only see him for, a handful of series and only getting the ball less than 10 times. But that's okay, because that's what we want. We want him to make a progression back to where when he's ready to go, he's ready, but he takes his time getting there.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Turning the page to one of our other superstars, and that is Myles Garrett dealing with this foot situation. Now, MRIs came back pretty clean, but I want to talk about that. I asked Stump last night on the Stump Talk podcast. He didn't really indicate whether or not this has been kind of a lingering thing for Myles, but I know we said last week, or maybe it was the week prior, like this is just something we anticipate he's going to have to deal with throughout the season. But I just want to talk about that a little bit more because, really looks like it's bugging him.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is on the injury report today, he did not practice, but the only injury that they had listed for him is Achilles. They didn't list quad, they didn't list foot. They only listed Achilles, and so it's hard to know for sure if the feet continue to be a problem for him or if it was pulling him out of the game on Sunday and limiting him was the Achilles. Now we know around the league, Christian McCaffrey, he's got Achilles issues, and it turns out it's in both ankles. And we know how severe that can be. I mean, it can really limit you and put a hamper on your ability to perform. And so Achilles is nothing to mess around with. And it's hard to know because it's not that they're playing shadow games and kind of hiding or withholding information, but at the end of the day, like they're not going to tell us every single detail. And with the clean MRIs, it leads you to believe that maybe the feet aren't as problematic as we thought, even though they've talked about them. And maybe it is the Achilles that's really the biggest hurdle for him right now. It's so hard to know, and I wish I could give you a better answer. But at the end of the day, the only people who truly know are Myles himself and the team doctors in the facility.
Well, I think it's crazy with his issues that I believe he had 2 sacks on the game still. Even with his injuries, like he's superhuman to me. So clearly he's playing through adversity and out there, under pain, which is crazy to me. So,
All right, David, what else we got? Who else is on that injury report?
Well, good to see that Njoku practiced today. It was limited, but he did practice, which is definitely a sign in the right direction. I know I said there's a chance he could have played last week. Ultimately, he did not. And then it just goes to show, like, just he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for the return yet. And practicing today is a step in the right direction. And so hopefully that's a positive indicator that we will see him back on the field on Sunday. Like I said, Naheem Hines is also in the same window as Chubb now, with potentially be activated within 21 days. And so getting some depth at running back will be big. And maybe we're starting to see a little light at the end of the tunnel, little little glimpses or glimmers of hope in terms of this injury bug, just with those two. And then guard Michael Dunn also being placed in that window for return. Now, he had a calf injury last year that he recovered from. He was on the IR, but he came back and played the rest of the season. But he was placed on the IR in August before the season began this year with an illness. I don't know what that is. They didn't really specify, kind of strange or mysterious, but either way, he was in practice today, albeit limited, but he returned to practice as well. And so adding some depth to the offensive line is always a bonus, especially with what the Browns have going on right now. And so really four really encouraging pieces of news coming out of practice today. Otherwise, Jack Conklin and Jed, they did not practice. And so there's still some issues there with their injuries. And really, those are probably the biggest things. But again, encouraging that we have three guys who are in the activation window and in Njoku practice. So hopefully these are all pointing towards the right direction and getting some health towards the middle of the season here.
Yeah, I was just my thought was right on spot on there. Like, if we can get these guys back and more healthy for the tough stretch of the season, I mean, you couldn't ask for, because, and knock on wood, they stay healthy. It would be the polar opposite of what's happened to the Browns in the past. They get decimated with injuries mid-season, and they linger till the end of the season. So if we can get these guys back healthy for this tough stretch, and the Browns can string along some wins, that can only help this team in the future for sure.
Yeah, especially as we start to get into division play. I mean, you haven't played a division game yet. And so if we can get some healthy players as we get into the divisional play, anything can happen towards the end of the season.
I have a question off topic, not Browns related. Well, I mean, it's on topic. It's NFL and it's our upcoming opponent. Have either of you seen going around the elbow on Jaden Daniels? If not, if you haven't seen that, it's this. Hey, Dave, I have a question. What the hell?
That's funny. I do remember that coming up preseason and before we got into the season. I think that picture, not doctored, but certainly it's during motion. It's moving, and so it looks very odd and very disturbing.
So there's actually a couple of different versions of this. So there's that one. Let me upload the other. I mean, there's another photo. Give me a second. It's gotta take a second to upload, but it's weird, isn't that? Like, I don't know. It's not supposed to be like that, right?
No. To me, what that looks like in this picture is he's got what we call bursitis, olecranon bursitis. The olecranon is the point of your elbow. And there's, okay, I see it there too. Yep. It's likely what we call, it's olecranon bursitis. And so there's a bursa is like a fluid-filled potential space between bone and skin where there isn't a lot of tissue otherwise. So think about your elbow, think about your kneecap, think about your hips, even in your shoulders you have them. And if there's inflammation, if there's irritation or swelling, they can get filled with fluid, and that fluid can kind of persist as fluid, or can actually kind of almost turn into like a scar tissue where it's a little bit thicker, a little bit more firm. And it can just be a source of like sometimes pain, but mostly just it looks ugly. It really is not a structural issue. I've seen it in my clinic a handful of times this year already since moving to Pensacola. For the most part, it does not bother people besides the way it appears. Now, sometimes to rest on it can be a little painful or be a little annoying, but it's not going to limit him throwing. It's not going to limit his performance. It's just going to look real ugly and lead to fun conversations like this.
Yeah, I know that this was a thing when, in the draft at the combine, he was asked about this a lot. And I remember on Twitter, he was like, I've never seen this before. Like, I didn't even know my elbow did that. So clearly it's not something that bothers him, but I mean, that thing is freaky. Like, I mean, do you think both elbows are that way, or just that throw? Well, I guess we can kind of see a better look here. It looks like it's just that one weird pointy one.
Yeah, it looks like it's just the right one. It's his throwing arm, so that definitely gets a lot more motion than the left side. So it's probably just related to overuse and minor irritation. But I mean, you've seen what he's done so far this year. It's not holding him back.
No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. I saw that and I was like, oh, this is gonna be perfect. I'm not even gonna. I on purpose didn't even mention it to you at dinner because I wanted to throw it at you on the show tonight. Just weird, kind of a weird thing, but you're right. It hasn't held him back in any stretch of the imagination. He's having just an insane insane start to his rookie season. Hang on, let me pull up my notes here. I mean, it's the best. He's statistically like the best since ever. He's got the best quarterback rating in the first 4 games, and that's better than any quarterback in NFL history. That's Jaden Daniels. Like, he is next level, insane. And David, we were talking about this before you joined. Like, that's when, it's fun as a fan when you see those glimmers of hope and things really start to come together. When you draft a young player and you're like, okay, this guy's going to stick around. I don't know. I think he's a very refined quarterback, a little bit more refined than Lamar Jackson was coming out of Louisville. Obviously, we know who Lamar Jackson is now, but like the ceiling is forever with this kid and Jaden Daniels. So it's just, I'm excited for it, but I do think that there's definitely some holes in this Washington football team. I think the Browns do, believe it or not, I know we just said a minute ago, they've got a good shot here. I do like the matchup. But David, before we get you out of here, I've got a question. Let's take it to Detroit. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. We've seen as Browns fans, we've had the double-headed monster before with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Obviously, all teams have multiple running backs on their roster, but that true running back split, it works for them. It's a well-oiled machine in Detroit. And obviously, I'm asking you as a Lions fan, I want to just talk about this before we get you out of here. It's worked so well for them the past couple of years. How do you find consistency with that? Like, what do the Lions have that other teams don't to make that system work?
Yeah, truthfully, I think the key and the mastermind behind it all is Ben Johnson. He's been there, 3 seasons now, and he is really putting on a clinic when it comes to being able to draw up an offensive scheme that highlights the skill players and distributes the ball appropriately. Between Montgomery and Gibbs themselves, they have similarities in their game, but obviously Montgomery's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit more of a power back, and Gibbs definitely has more of that quickness, that elusiveness. But I mean, you see it. Gibbs will put his shoulder down and run through the hole too. And so I think the other key is getting them involved in the pass game. They both are very diverse in their ability to catch the ball, make moves after catching it, or find the right hole. And so they have good vision, they have good patience, and they just they play off of each other and complement each other very well. I think the fact that they both are involved in the passing game is beneficial, because when one guy comes in, you don't know what's going to happen. It's not like it comes in, we know that this run is going to be up the middle, goal line, shove it down your throat. It's always a mystery in whether they're going to be coming catching out of the backfield or getting a pitch or a counter or a misdirection. And so they've found a way to distribute the ball equally, and their stats are, they're running parallel seasons last year and this year. And so I think a lot of the credit has to go to the offensive coordinator and the way that he has schemed them up to have success both in this offense. And it's really cool to see, just because, like you said, there's other teams that have tried it and it doesn't work so well, but they're finding success in Detroit with it.
Except Jahmyr Gibbs did not play a role in the pass as a pass threat at all. I had him with 2 receptions, 25 receiving yards on Monday Night Football. That didn't happen, so I didn't hit that one, but that's okay. That's okay. Maybe the next one. But David, this was great. We always learn a lot every time you join us. We appreciate it. Go Browns.
45 days and counting.
45 days. Go Browns. Thanks for having me.
All right, that is Dr. David Ullery. Medical Moment brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards. Dustin, I know you're sipping on something. What do you got going on there?
I have got Western Reserve Distillers whiskey. This stuff is great. We have the 20-year bourbon whiskey. We have the 7 and the 8-year, but you can get that at Western Reserve Distillers, in Lakewood, Ohio, where every Wednesday night is 50-cent wings, $12 flights of Here We Go Brownies whiskey, and half off bottles of wine. You can also pick up Here We Go Brownies wine from Larry Lorello's vineyard there in the store as well, in the gift shop. So, Allie, speaking of running backs, have you seen what the Boise State running back is doing? 16 touchdowns on the season, averaging 10.3 yards. You want to talk about a 1-2 combo? How about Genty and Chubb? That would be crazy to watch.
Sign me up for that. He's unreal.
But how about some mock drafts? I don't know if you've seen, there's some new mock drafts out there for the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, mid-season form already. We're doing mock drafts. We're.
Did you see who they have the Browns taking? Sanders.
I've seen multiple. I've seen multiple.
Well, they have Sanders, the
Yes,
quarterback out of Colorado.
Currently, the Browns, as it stands today, hold the number 5 overall pick in this year's draft. I've seen Shedeur Sanders. I've seen Travis Hunter there. I've seen it all. Mid-season form. That's what us fans do. Things don't go well, we start making
We're
money.
into the season, and we're already talking the draft. Not a good sign.
Well, not great. Not great. I know you've got some barbecue sauce there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so our friends at City Barbecue, we've got some barbecue original here. We got some, looks like brush fire. We got some swine wine. We got the spicy stuff. But yeah, guys, if you want to just stop into one of the locations, 6 Northeast Ohio locations, if you want to stop in and just get barbecue and have that there for your home, you can pick that up at any of those. Any events we do in the city where I'm out and about and we're doing an event, I have been given multiple cases of this wonderful barbecue to give away for free. So when you're out and about, stadium mustard, barbecue sauce, I mean, whatever we have to give away, it's always fun at our events. And I got to do a lot of fun stuff with Greg Williams last week. I got to tell you, that was fun having Greg Williams in the house with his son Blake and just watching how people react to him in a room. Because Allie, and you know what? You've not got to experience this, but he's a very intense person, and he will tell you this. And he'll joke about this, but his son and people will say somebody should go with Greg on his runs to make sure he's monitored and make sure he doesn't like give his opinion too much. But he was talking to me and he gave me a poke, and he gave me a poke right there. And he goes, and he looks at you like that. And I'm like, he just demands respect. And you know what? And it was just, and I love him for that. But he's like, listen. And I'm like, I'm listening. So it's like, but no, that was fun. But yeah, they're doing some fun stuff. Him and they're doing some simulcast stuff themselves on Thursdays. But yeah, they're great to have them out. We're gonna have some fun guests coming up, some alumni in the next couple of weeks, so look out for that too. So always fun to do some fun stuff in person.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're going to turn it over to the matchup against the Washington Commanders because, like I said, I do like this matchup. Even though things haven't necessarily gone in the direction of the Cleveland Browns, I still like this matchup. Real quick, we do want to tell you about our friends over at 5 Iron Golf. Guys, whether you're just getting started in golf or you're a seasoned vet, you can head on over there, enjoy some drinks, some food, some golf. Or maybe it's just a rainy day and you want to get some swings in. It's inclusive and it is fun for everybody, fun for the whole family. So go check out 5 Iron Golf.
And that discount, Brownie 40.
Brownie 40.
Off hourly rentals whenever you go. Brownie 40.
I do love a good bargain. That's one thing about Allie Heislong. All right, let's talk about this matchup. Like I said, I think that there are some holes in Washington, the roster, what they've got going on. They have to come back to earth. Cliff Kingsbury's got things just going crazy over there. They've got a great young quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Obviously, they've got a great receiver in Terry McLaurin. But overall, offensive line, don't entirely love it. I think that outside of Terry McLaurin, their pass catchers, I like the matchup with our corners, our secondary. I think that our talent outweighs theirs. Defensively, they've got some holes. They've got some young studs. But overall, it's a very young team. And I think, especially defensively for the Cleveland Browns, Jim Schwartz is very good at being able to confuse young quarterbacks. And that's kind of where he thrives. Going up against a really young offense, I think Jim Schwartz, this defense is going to be able to just confuse him, flat out confuse him. I do expect there to be some takeaways from this defense in this game. I know we haven't seen a lot of that. The Browns haven't forced many turnovers this season, but I think that actually changes in this matchup. And even though things have been doom and gloom for most of this podcast and for most of this Brown season, I do think that the Browns will kind of play up to the expectations of one, who this Washington Commanders team is, and actually come away with hopefully a win, but come away with it just looking right. Just the efforts there, everything's a bounce back. I really do think that this will be a bounce back game.
Yeah, and I think it has to be a bounce back game because the tough part of their schedule is coming up, and they got to, like I said, they got to right this ship. Like you said, this is a younger team that a Schwartz defense should be able to take advantage of, and I hope they do. if we get Njoku back, that's a big difference in this football game. That's another big offensive weapon that you didn't have the last few weeks. So I think that's big. And honestly, if you can just find just some stability on the offensive line, that will make this team a world of difference, because at times this team is going down the field and just that offensive line just is not consistent enough going all the way through a consistent drive. So for me, the offensive line, and I'm not saying they have to be like perfect, because they're not going to be, but I got to say this. And I was, obviously I tuned into 92.3 The Fan for more than enough reasons, right? But I was listening and they brought up a really good point. We bitch and moan all the time. Oh, it's the injuries. Oh, it's the injuries. Oh, woe we, woe us, woe me, all that stuff. There's teams that have 17 players injured. They gave a list of 17 players on the injured reserve of teams that have a winning record and have had injuries for the last few weeks. They overcome those, right? They overcome those. We talk about the Ravens has been decimated with injuries, and they overcome it. No more excuses. Injuries happen. It's part of the National Football League. It's the next man up mentality. So they just have to find a way to not let these injuries, and maybe, we didn't talk about this on this podcast earlier, but maybe they're believing that, oh, we can't be better because of the injury. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's something I'm just thinking out loud now, but you overcome those and you just say, no, I don't care who's injured, right? Because guess what? We had 5 quarterbacks last year and we put 11 wins on the season, right? We still won despite not having a consistent quarterback play except for the very end of the season, right? So yes, injuries happen. So I think they just need to overcome this mentality of you just have to just go out there and give it your best, right? And by the way, we don't like injuries, but with injuries, opportunities happen. So if you're that player, make the best of your moment. You know what? Try to be as good as that guy, or maybe better, that was playing that position. Because guess what? That's going to get some eyeballs on some people and say, whoa, he is good. And he stepped up, and under the pressure and under the lights, he took off, right? And so I think that team needs more of that, because injuries are going to happen. I don't care. It's just a part of football. And there's a lot of teams that have a lot of hurt players, and they're still winning games.
Yeah. They find ways to overcome adversity. And that's just not been something that this Browns team has been able to do at all this season. And if you want a shot to even put together some semblance of a halfway decent season, let alone playoffs and everything, but if you want a shot at it looking right and, running this back next year, you got to figure out a way to overcome some of those things. Instead of using injuries as a crutch, kind of lean into it and play for one another and this next man up. It's things like that. It's all about the attitude. It's about the grit and being able to go out there and do it week in and week out. So I agree. I think that the hope is there. Just got to start stacking some wins here. Okay. Before we turn it, go ahead. Do you have a thought there?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, we also, I think we need to talk about the suspension of the player.
Yes,
for the Browns.
I'm so sorry. Totally forgot. Mike Hall, on the commissioner's exempt list, now faces the suspension. Now, the way that works, it does kind of work retroactively. So he will be out. So he's already basically served 4 games. He will be out against the Washington Commanders, but forward to having him back in the near future, which will be great for this defense.
Yeah, and now let me ask you about this. Speaking of the offensive line, what did you think his interest play on Sunday? I thought he played formidably out there for being a rookie. I just was curious what your opinion of the Michigan.
I think Zach Zinter's got a bright future in the league. I think it really helps being on a line. Now, obviously not this past week. The reason he was there was due to injury. But being on that offensive line with leadership like Joel Bitonio in that room, obviously we know Wyatt went out. That's why he's playing. Even Postage, whatnot, but you still have veteran talent in that room. So obviously that's going to benefit him. I thought he played well. I really do. I did too, yeah. He's got a bright future. You're looking at a starting guard in this league. He's just young, right? Like you're just going to see some things here and there that you'd like to have back, but it all comes down to reps. I think he's got a really bright future. Okay, let's go around the league. Before we do so, Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about Greater Cleveland Aquarium?
Yeah, guys, if you have family or you're in Cleveland and you want to take your children, if you have grandchildren you want to take down there, it's amazing. You can touch the stingrays. You can take in all those wonderful exhibits there. They have the shark tunnel, which is super cool. You can walk through that with your family and be like inches away from a shark's face. It's kind of crazy. But then all the different worldly exhibits from species from all over the world. Great place to check out all those wonderful things there at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium.
Yeah. And while you're at it, we got the Lady Caroline cruise ship. Look at that view.
Yeah, Allie, I got a chance to go out on that Thursday night cruise. Did that. It was always amazing. David and yourself need to come out and check that out sometime. Go out there. If you don't do the lunch cruise, do the dinner cruise. It's an amazing experience to go out there and check that out. It goes all over the lake for 2.5 hours. They have a DJ. It's set down dinner, drinks, cocktails. You just get to go out and have a leisurely time on the boat and have fun. By the way, you can also rent it for private charters, weddings, receptions. There's all kinds of cool things you can do as well if you want to privately charter that boat, which I thought was kind of cool. Like have your own boat and do your own things on that boat. So, yeah.
All right, there you go. There you have it. All right, let's go around the league. Dustin, this past week I gotcha. So I'm up 2. I don't have a loss yet, but we are tied. So I'm 2-0-2. You are 0-2-2. So let's get into it. Let's start with tomorrow night. What did you say?
It's got to change. We have 2 ties. We have 2 ties. You have 2 wins and I have 0 wins, right? Is that what I heard?
That's correct. So let's see how this week goes. Starting with Thursday Night Football, Bucks at Falcons. What you got?
I tell you, the Bucks played damn good football. They beat the Eagles. Bucks at Falcons. You know what? Yep. I'm on the Mayfield train. Give me the Bucks.
I'm going to Falcons in this.
Ooh, okay. There it is.
Falcons. All right. Jets at Vikings.
I'm going Vikings.
Gosh, I think at what point do they come back down to earth? Or do they? I mean, or do they? I don't know.
Sam Darnold is playing out of his mind.
He is. He really, really is. I'm going to go Vikings also at home. If this was in New York, I'd probably go the other direction. But it's at home. Give me the Vikings. Panthers at Bears. Bears. Yeah, I think so too. Browns at Commanders. Who you got?
I don't want to do this for the sake of podcasting, but I kind of want them and need them to win to make my life better next week. I'm going Browns.
You going Browns? I'm going Browns too. I think the Browns get a win here on the road. Dolphins at Patriots.
Patriots.
I think I have to take the Patriots. Dolphins are atrocious.
Yeah.
Hot garbage. Give me the Patriots. Colts at Jags.
Colts. Oh, by the way, do we know if
No. I do not think Anthony Richardson will be playing.
Joe Flacco? Give me the Colts.
I'm going to take the Jags. I think the Jags get their first win, but I think it's ugly. Bills at Texans.
So the Bills got embarrassed.
Yeah, they did.
I actually think the Bills are technically a little bit better team than the Texans, just overall. Mm-hmm. Give me the Bills in a squeaker on the road.
Damn. I don't know what to do here.
They got embarrassed. So, I think it's kind of a
my prediction. I don't know if I said this on the pod or if I was thinking it in my head. 2 are one and the same, but I don't know where I got this, but I think I remember either thinking or saying that I think the Bills could go on a little bit of a losing streak. And I'm gonna guess that again. I'm gonna go with my gut. Give me the Texans over the Bills. I don't know, but I agree. I think the Bills are a little bit better, but I don't know much about much. Ravens at Bengals.
For whatever reason, the Bengals can't beat the Ravens, right? That's kind of the Achilles heel. It seems like they can never beat or is it the other way around? The Ravens can't beat the Bengals. Which one is it? Because one of them always has a tough.
What's that? Can't win. I think it's the Bengals.
Yeah, they can't beat the Ravens, right? That's always been their like.
It's a good game. Yeah, Ravens still proven otherwise. I think I agree with that. I'm going to go Ravens.
I'm going to go Ravens too. The Ravens look. I mean, Derrick Henry looks scary.
That was insane. Yeah. Raiders at Broncos.
Broncos are kind of weirdly up and down. They're streaky, right? We don't. I think the Raiders are starting to find an identity a little bit. They still won without. This is always a big rivalry game. If Matt Crosby comes back, do we know if Max Crosby? Is Devontae Adams ever going to play a snap?
Devontae Adams is not. I don't think he's not playing.
Yeah. Give me. I don't. This is a tough one. Give me the. Give me the.
I'm going to go Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos here.
Yeah, give me the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't think the Raiders have the ability to stack wins. That's where I kind of.
This is the team that lost to the Panthers. I mean, this is the team that lost to the Panthers. But they also beat the Raiders. They beat the Raiders. They beat the Ravens. This team is crazy.
Who knows anything, right? Cardinals at Niners.
Niners.
Yeah, give me the Niners. Giants, Seahawks.
Seahawks are good.
Yep, give me the Seahawks here. Packers at Rams.
Jordan Love is back.
Uh-huh.
Packers. Rams. Give me the Packers. Actually, Packers travel well, and the Rams never have good home team. I mean, their fans are. Give me the Packers.
All right, I'm going to take the Rams here. And then Sunday Night Football, we've got the Cowboys at Steelers.
Cowboys. This is where the Steelers start to, become. They level out. So.
Yep, give me the Cowboys. And Monday Night Football, Saints at Chiefs.
This is just the Chiefs are getting lucky, but they're also decimated at wide receiver. Can Patrick Mahomes pull it out? I think the Saints get a sneaky win on the road. I'm going to go with the Saints here. I think the Saints.
Yeah. I agree with you. Okay, that's what we got. I think this will be a fun week in football. I am enjoying now that we're out of the first quarter of the season. Like we said, the first few weeks are still similar to the preseason. Teams are still trying to figure out who they are, their identity, what guys can do, scheme, all of that. Right. We're starting to kind of get out of that. Teams are kind of figuring things out, and we're starting to see better football, which is much more fun. As a fan. Before we wrap up, also want to tell you about our friends over at Teresa's Pizza. They've got recipes that come from a strong Italian tradition, and it's been passed down through their family. It's family owned and operated. They've got the fresh baked pizza that is made with their family recipe sauce, topped with real Wisconsin cheese, and get a salad. They've got grandma's homemade Italian dressing. It's the taste to start a new tradition. That's our friends over at Teresa's Pizza. Dustin, what else you got? Thoughts as we wrap up on a beautiful Wednesday evening.
Let me tell you something. This is very weird, and it's been this way since I was a young person. And by the way, it has been steadfastly true always. The years that my Browns are good, my college football team is not good. When my college football team is great, my pro team sucks. And it is lining up perfectly for that season. So I'm sorry, guys, but it's weird. My Boise State Broncos are 21. They're moving up in the polls, and they're getting a lot of national attention. And they're a tough out right now for any team. I mean, they should have won that Oregon game. They should be they outplayed them in Oregon easily in most of that entire football game. So, and your Buckeyes are undefeated. Who they got this weekend?
Iowa.
Well, that'll be a tough game. Iowa their defense always comes to play.
Yeah. It's we're starting to similarly. You're starting to get into conference play, better. You're getting the good stuff here. It's a lot of good.
So let me ask you this: you see all of this because you're a very passionate college football fan, and I know that from knowing you over the years. What do you make? Because I want your opinion on this. It's a little off topic from the Browns, but what Boise State has done, along with other college teams, to revive the Pac-12. And make that conference and now I don't know if you saw as a couple of days ago, they've added Gonzaga. So that is going to make, and this is full disclosure, that has made that now a powerhouse college basketball conference because you have San Diego State, UC State, Gonzaga, these teams that consistently get to the tournament, New Mexico, right? Those teams that are consistently always good. What do you make of what they're trying to do with the Pac-12? I'm just curious.
I appreciate it. I do. I respect it and I appreciate it. I think diversity and parity in college football is a good thing. And obviously, with the expanded playoffs now, this gives other teams more and easier access and ability to get there and to have maybe not make it to a title game, but just better matchups. Better visibility, better rankings. I mean, look at Boise State, for example. I mean, the visibility is great. People are following them. And obviously it comes with having a good team. But, looking at the division there in the conference there, it makes for better football. So I respect it. I appreciate it. And I was a fan of Power 5 now instead of, we're more Power 4. But I was a fan of that, having Washington, Oregon, USC all out there. And, it made sense. I think it's weird watching on Big Ten Network Washington playing Rutgers. Like, I think that, it's just my brain can't.
Well, and you understand this. Well, and you and your sister and you understand this from a collegiate standpoint, non-football. Like the women's teams that have to go all the way to Rutgers, you know what I mean? Right. Or these teams from California. It's just, it doesn't make sense, right? And you hear some of these coaches that, like the Texas coaches talked about this. He goes, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the football team can afford that. You know what I mean? The football team and their budget. But what about the women's lacrosse? I mean, all these other teams, you're forcing them now to travel and you're ballooning their travel budgets and all that. It just doesn't make sense.
I do appreciate new matchups, like being able to watch like Rutgers play UCLA. Like, it's weird. My brain can't do it, but I also respect it. And I think it's fun. Right. But I also just appreciate what Pac-12 is trying to do and get back at it, because I think it's fun. And college football right now is a good time. I like watching the matchups. The expanded interest really is really cool. But
and if they can add like UNLV to that, which is a big TV market, obviously that'll bring more revenue from a TV standpoint. And if they can get to 10 teams or whatever that looks like, because they have till 2026. Because obviously they won't be in that conference till 2026, so they have some time here. It'd be interesting, but I hope they get that opportunity to be a Power 5 type of conference, because, I mean, from a basketball standpoint, they would definitely be there, because a lot of teams are in the. I mean, Gonzaga, for crying out loud, is in the Sweet 16 every year and Elite 8 most of the time. So, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But it's just they got to fix college football in a lot of ways in college athletics, because if they don't, I think it's going to get ruined, and that's for a whole other topic. But NIL transfer, all that crap is crazy right now. So
yeah, definitely. All right, we are going to wrap up. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. It's a lot of fun being able to do this every week. So stay tuned, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans, go Browns.